Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to another future deck profile. Today, let's look at Ting-Lu. Is this a very strong ability locking deck even that good, or should we be worried about it? So right now, it's doing pretty good in Japan, being about 3% of the City League, which is still pretty good in the early few sort of weeks to get a couple wins, which is exactly what we like to see from these new sort of deck and archetypes. But the amazing ability Earth and Curse, which shuts down every single ability that has a damage counter on, which isn't an EX. Very, very good when you think of Gardevoir. Yes, Gardevoir doesn't get shut off, but it does shut off the Curliers, the Shining Arcana Gardevoir, as well as Greninja. Or in Lost Box, it shuts down Cramorant, it shuts down Comfeys, Mew, it shuts down Genesect. So many abilities it shuts down, which is really, really powerful. Fortunately, its damage output isn't as strong, doing 150 damage, but it does do some damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so you can go around and get that Earth and Curse available on more Pokemon. Although, with all that being said, a lot of these decks do play escape ropes, so they can go around it, so this is where you want to have as many Ting-Lus out in play. So let's jump into the deck profile. So we do play 4 copies of Ting-Lu, the incredibly powerful card which will shut down your opponent's abilities. Yes, I just mentioned about how good it is, but we use Crydon EX with its amazing Dino Cry ability, which you end your turn, but you can attach 2 basic fighting energies from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon or fighting Pokemon, and that could be used to Ting-Lu, so it's all powered up by the end of your first turn, which is super, super strong. It also is a decent attacker, but doing 220, so it can help clear out near the late game. We do play some couple damage moving Pokemon. We do play 2 copies of Hawlucha with that flying entry where you can damage 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, putting 1 damage counter on each. That really helps go around the Earth and Curse to attack more Pokemon, like for example Archeops, which may not be there straight away. Another one is Radiant Alakazam, a very, very powerful one where you can, once in your turn, move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to one of their other ones. Very good to spread the damage. You could do the 150 to something and then move some damage counters around the board. Very, very, very powerful. Mew can be a little bit of a problem, and also sometimes Lumineon. So sometimes we like to play the Spiritomb. Spiritomb has the amazing ability where no basic Vs have any abilities. Very, very powerful, and it kind of can shift your Mew matchup to be really, really strong and favorable as long as you have your Spiritomb. And to round up the Pokemon, we play Squawk Ability EX. The new EX, which has taken everything by storm. This amazing ability which you can play whenever you like. Only on your first turn, you just discard your hand and draw up to 6. Very, very nice this one on play effect, and this is very, very strong to really get your setup. The rest of it really helps kind of like move around a bit. We do play 4 switching cards, 1 copy of Switch Card and 3 copies of Escape Rope. This is good with Switch Card because you can get that little bit of healing in, which can stop like some Sableye damage. And Escape Rope, you want to be some destructive as much as possible. So they bring something which they don't want to really switch out. Use Escape Rope, you're bringing up something potentially they may not want to, or force them to bring up a really damaged Pokemon. Very, very good, and I love having disruption in the style list. Then at other search options, we do have 3 copies of Battle VIP Pass and 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Because most of you all are basic Pokemon, and we do want to get some discard effects with Ultra Ball, that's why we play a higher count of these ones. You could argue you could play more Nest Balls in this list because of all of that sort of things, but because you have Hawlucha, and you do not want to put it straight onto the bench, that's why we play the 4 copies of Ultra Ball. 4 copies of Trekking Shoes again to get the energies into the discard pile, which is really, really strong, or potentially a Pokemon you may not need to, as well as getting that extra draw factor. You want to be always constantly continuing that pressure of Earth and Curse, and that's why Trekking Shoes is really strong. Same thing with Gutsy Pickaxe. Gutsy Pickaxe could potentially, you could be attacking turn 1, doing 150 damage. Although it may be a lot of damage, but if you're going second on your first turn, that's a huge amount of damage, which will immediately put pressure on by drawing a card. But if it's a basic fighting energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. Very, very strong. And the item cards are purely there to help the setup and switch them around. And when we go to the support account, we do play 1 copy of Penny. Penny's good to get that reuse of Hawlucha, or potentially even get a Pokemon out there which may be a bit of a threat. For example, Squawk Ability, or potentially healing up a Ting-Lu. That's why it's really good to have this Penny in there to get that healing effect. Do play some 2 copies of Judge and 2 copies of Iona. You want to be disruptive to the opponent as much as possible. You want to make sure that you're limiting the hand size, or potentially if they go ahead in the turn, you want to punish them with Iona. And then to play 2 copies of Boss. The reason why Boss is much more favored than it is in Serena, because right now in Japan, a lot of people are playing these EX style decks. Gardevoir is very popular, Ting-Lu's incredibly strong, Xian Pao, and also the other like Lost Box. All of these don't really play V Pokemon, so Serena becomes a bit made redundant. So that's why Boss is much stronger right now in this new format. And to round up the supporters, we do play 4 copies of Research. Research, one of the strongest supporters in the game, helps you with your energy acceleration, as well as drawing through the deck as quick as possible, so I really like that. We don't play any destructive supporters, for example, like the new one with discarding special energies, because we're mainly focused on ability lock. And to round out with stadiums, we play 1 copy of Temple of Sinnoh and 2 copy of Gatedraw Bog. Temple of Sinnoh to really help your Lugia matchup, your Mew matchup, and any other, even like Reggie's, any deck which might play special energies. It's really good to try and hinder them, to stop them, kind of gain out as much quick as possible. And 2 copies of Gatedraw Bog. Yes, it's damage your own Pokemon, but they will damage your opponent's one, and potentially some of the abilities may not be in play, which I really like. Then we also play for the tool cards 1 copy of EXP Share. Because these are very high energy costs, like 3, this could potentially limit your talent attachments quite a bit and make sure you can attack your Ting-Lus consistently. And the 2 copies of the, I always call it the Cape of Toughness reprint, giving Ting-Lu 290 HP is insane on a basic Pokemon, so that's why it's there and why it's used. And to round up the entire list, we do play 13 copies of Fighting Energies. Because of the amazing Koraidon ability, that's why we're playing this high amount, to make sure that we're constantly hitting it turn 1 to really power up the Ting-Lu. This is sort of the rough archetype, which I think have been really, really well, at least looking in Japan, as well as my theory one and practicing. But what's his matchups like? Pretty positive around most of the stuff. All of these Pokemon which really focus on abilities, it's incredibly favored towards. When you think of decks like Arceus and Miraidon, and because they're also weak to you, that's why it can be so strong. Yes, Flying Pikachu is really starting to come up, so that's a bit of a problem, and it's not weak to fighting, so you have to go around that a little bit. But with cards like a Multiple Boss, as well as your high escape ropes, you can really help in those sort of matchups. In Lost Zone box, because you nearly one-shot everything and also potentially limiting all of their Pokemon with abilities, you can really stop them from getting out as quickly as possible into their Lost Zone and going with Saberline. Same thing with Lugia. Lugia, because you're also hitting for weakness with some of their Pokemon, as well as really limiting their own Pokemon, like their Archeopses. You can really stop them from really powering up as quick as possible. When Lugia is just attaching 1 energy per turn, it's a really slow deck, not very powerful when you can have Temple out, as well as the Ting-Lu, really limiting the ability your Lugia is playing. It's very, very favored. Your negative ones, like I said, you play with Mew, you do have Temple, you do have Spiritomb, but Mew can do Mew things and can completely get the one-hit KO out of nowhere. It's definitely something to be struggled with. You have to really use your Alakazam and your Haluchas to make sure all of the genetics are damaged. They're not gaining as much draw power as possible. Similar thing with Flosso and Giratina. Although this deck is definitely on a bit of a decline right now in Japan, I would say it's still definitely a threat, because Giratina can still power up Velocitone even with an attack and not worry about abilities, where if you think about with Chorus as well as Giratina can tank at least 2 attacks potentially. And also, if you play a few choruses, you can get easily up to 8 to potentially even 10 Lost Zone by the 3rd turn of their game. And Gardevoir EX, yes, you can shut them down, but it becomes a bit of a negative because they can get the one-hit KO very easily, and Gardevoir still doesn't get shut down. So that's pretty much as positive and negative matchups. But on paper, it looks like it's got really good matchups overall. But because it is taking quite a while to set up, it can take a bit of a while. So that is kind of the rough Ting-Lu list overall. I think it's definitely a good place in the meta right now. It's still performing pretty okay in Japan. It's always been at that 3% in most of the top 8. So definitely something to keep on your radar when you're testing for any IC or looking into Japan in their future formats. Definitely would consider the list is going to release for a few cups when they come out. But I wouldn't say it's exactly that tier 1 archetype, which everyone really hopes, similar like Ting-Lu, is really starting to fall down a little bit. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and it's been really informative about why you play a certain number of these cards and how they will affect your matchup. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below what lists are you really excited about to test from the new format. There are so many cool archetypes, and I can't wait to cover them and showcase which lists I think will be definitely something to keep on your radar. Sorry, my name is TCG, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Bye for now.